mechanisms virtually indispensable. They have increasing sway over our lives. Meanwhile, those who supposedly give us sway at all in this world don't do much. When's the last time you had to contact your government? How was that experience? I spent 6 hours on hold and then waited 6 months for a response that was supposed to take a day. Conversely, if I need help from Amazon, I can get it in 48 hours, guaranteed, and they welcome my feedback. The juxtaposition gets me to thinking, why is Amazon so good at what it does, as far as their customers are concerned anyway, and government bureaucracies are so bad at what they do, namely, responsiveness to the people who they nominally represent. Leftists, for their part, pride themselves on having good political imaginations. They can imagine the utopias of universal benefits, or even classless societies. Though for most of us, I should think we'd be contented by a functioning government, one capable of representing public interest at all. Why is it that those who represent us are unable to prioritize what these private economies do every single day? Responsiveness in place of bureaucracy, effective feedback, adaptation to changing conditions, 2-day delivery on what's promised. A functional government that serves people couldn't actually be a novel idea in the 21st century, could it? Turns out, it was an idea, not just in theory either. No, this was planned, built, and operation. A national economy relying on the communication between human beings and intelligent machines. A utopian dream for which the concrete was already poured and the cables already in the ground. So, if this happened, and if it really was so great, where is it? Where's our democratic socialist utopia? Where's this magic land? And if it was for real, then what the hell happened to it? This was, in the end, it's true, a lost cause. But in defense of lost causes, it demonstrates possibilities yet unrealized today. The technology and intelligent machines can be put to other ends. The ends of people, rather than the ends of profit. And at the same time, it serves as a warning of the lengths to which the status quo will go to maintain itself. Kidnapping, sabotage, terrorism, and public execution. To abort this future before it had the chance to be born. Cybernetics and socialism are both methods for understanding systems and their goals. They do not often appear together as they do here, and they are both popularly misunderstood. But it turns out they make quite an inspiring amalgam. Cybernetics offers models for understanding processes that are too complicated to model in terms of linear cause and effect. And as a method, it has often inspired theorists of various disciplines to interpret their objects of study in new ways, whether those objects are machines, bodies, minds, or even social systems, like an economy. We have various uses for cybernetics as a prefix that are sometimes misleading when it comes to its meaning, which in its modern form was popularized by theorist Norbert Wiener. For Wiener, cybernetic systems are characterized by feedback and control, and they use feedback loops with their environments, which adapt to new information so they can accomplish a predetermined goal. Such machines are found all around us if you know where to look. Thermostats and temperature governors, automated self-guided missiles, video recommending algorithms, and the vestibular system of cyborgs, including our bodies. We can stay upright only by a synthesis of inputs, in our case, our eyes, limbs, and inner ear. In each instance, live incoming information controls how the system behaves in real time, allowing a thermostat to maintain the temperature of a space, a missile that self-adjusts to hit a moving target, for a video site to recommend videos that you'll actually click on, or for your body to stay upright while being knocked around.
Trump was my boss.
And would anyone who worked for Mars cannot elect this man?
The second term would be way worse.
We make Project 2025 reality.
I saw the last of it when I was in the White House.
It's going to be all about vengeance.
He's going to purge the entire government and replace people with pluralists.
There are no guardrails this time.
I love my country more than my party. For the good of my country, I'll be voting for Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris has my vote.
When we use the word control, many tend to think of autocratic control as orders given in a military hierarchy. But when it comes to cybernetics or cyber socialism, we don't mean autocratic control, but automatic control. Rather than giving orders top-down, all of these control systems receive live information from their environments and adjust their decisions in real time. Just as it would be strange to suggest that your brain rules your body, it would be similarly strange to suggest that a government rules its people. These are not distinct, as the existence of one persists only by the healthy operations of the other.
Let me tell you what happened when I first explained it to President Allende himself. Allende was a doctor, a medical doctor, as you may know. And therefore it was very easy to explain the model to him in terms of neuropsychology as the way of controlling the body.
And it's no mere coincidence that cybernetic and governance are derived from the same Greek word, kubernetes, to steer. Reciprocal steering is the animating principle of cyber socialism. And for socialists like Allende, governance is only legitimate insofar as it is steered by the will of the people. And in turn, reciprocally, those entrusted to govern are capable of organizing much larger, more complex, even statewide projects that steer individuals' energy and ability towards ends that benefit all, ends that can never be accomplished by atomized individuals acting on their own.
Las grandes empresas transnacionales no solo atentan contra los intereses genuinos de los países en desarrollo, sino que su acción avasalladora y controlada se da también en los países industrializados donde se asientan.
Whereas Wiener was the father of cybernetics, Stafford Beer would come to be known as the father of management cybernetics. Before arriving in Chile, Beer was a corporate consultant, a well-compensated handshaker of the elite managerial class, while cruising around in his Rolls Royce. He worked for the steel and publishing industries, among others. After the events in Chile 1973, the one-time darling of corporate capital would say that
Allende was very successful. Now, the whole of the rich world were being told that he was a disaster, that his policies were deflationary, and all the rest of it. I have never seen a more misrepresentative media in all my life. It was outrageous. And of course had every conceivable political motive, because this was the first democratically elected Marxist in the history of man.
Beer would renounce his former luxurious lifestyle, retreating to a remote cabin in Wales, becoming something of a cybernetics guru. Before meeting Stafford Beer, Salvador Allende had probably never heard of cybernetics, but some of his younger staffers had, including Fernando Flores, who was a young engineer and political activist in Unidad Popular, a leftist coalition of social democrats, communists, and anarchists that won Chile's 1970 election, beating out the centrist Christian Democrat Party and the right-wing National Party. Flores had been inspired by Beer's ideas and saw in his writings a potential path for Chilean socialism to progress, one based not on autocratic control, but on cybernetic control. First, by creating direct communication loops between government agencies and the country's resource extraction and manufacturing sectors. If only in the mind of Flores, cyber-socialism had been conceived.
The challenge of ideas. The conflict itself, how can it be defined? Well, let's look at it this way. The communist bloc would like to see the entire world under communist domination. They have begun to talk more and more about their ability to win from us in the arena of ideas. This, of course, is fine with us, for we are a people with a traditionally great faith in our ideas. The ideas that have moved mountains and created wealth and shaped us as free men. And we are confident that history can do no other than award us the victory in any contest in which ideas are the weapon.
Allende indeed had some ideas. In his bipolar world, socialism conjured up images of violent overthrow, property seizure, and executions, and, well, autocratic control. He believed there could be a new way.
Aquí se siente la historia. Aquí estamos afianzando nuestro derecho a construir un porvenir de justicia y libertad y abrir los pasos hacia el socialismo.
Chilean socialism would not include servitude to American corporate interests, nor a Soviet-style bureaucracy, nor armed insurrection, as was accomplished in Cuba. He believed that socialist revolution could occur democratically in Chile, within the existing legal framework and without violence. He dreamed of a uniquely Chilean revolution, a chill revolution, one of red wine and empanadas. Allende's idea, and the platform in which he was elected, was that the government should serve the needs of the people, particularly that the profit earned from Chile's natural resources should remain in Chile to produce consumer goods that would be of use to Chileans. His challenge was not one of ideas, but of production and ownership. The first step to accomplishing this was for the Chilean government to purchase, legally, the mines, factories, and banks already operating in Chile from their foreign owners, so that the future profits from these industries would not disappear overseas, but rather that they would remain in Chile's national economy. Hardly a radical idea, but a Chile for Chileans would be the cause for which Allende would give his life 3 years later. Here's where cybernetic feedback comes in. Managing a whole network of resources, labor, and production from government offices in the capital would be very difficult. It would require a massive government bureaucracy, which, as we still know today, are colossally inefficient. But Flores had an idea. What if they introduced cybernetic feedback into their centralized system? Then, information could be received and acted upon in real time. For example, if there were raw materials backed up at one smelter, they could send it to another smelter with less on their plate before it caused disruptions. Or again, if there were raw materials stacked up somewhere, transportation could be diverted to a factory where they could be turned into consumer products. The entire production line could, in theory, work on automatic feedback. If resource extraction, refineries, factories, and transport were all directed from a centralized computing center, these nodes would run on their own most of the time, with the control center stepping in only when important decisions had to be made or if something went wrong. In 1970, this was nothing more than a thought experiment. The technology for it did not exist yet, anywhere, though we see its legacy everywhere today. This is why the project was so ingenious. Not only did they theorize it, but they had to build it from the limited resources they had available to them. There were only 4 mainframe computers in the entire country at the time. In 1971, Flores hired Beer, one of the world's leading cyberneticians, to consult on the implementation of this grand idea, to develop the technologies required to make it happen, and eventually to run the whole Chilean national economy. Beer agreed, having only a vague idea of what he was getting into.
And then I suddenly got a letter which very much changed my life. It was from Technical General Manager of the State Planning Board of Chile. Remember, 1971, President Allende was in office. He remarked in this letter that he had studied all my works, he had collected a team of scientists together, and would I please come and take it over? I could hardly believe it, as you can imagine.
I saved hundreds with Liberty Mutual. Good.
Over the next 2 years, Flores and Beer put together an international team of engineers, programmers, and designers, which would come to be known as Project CyberSync, or Cinco. It was planned to have 5 parts, most of which had already reached proof of concept by the time of the military coup. First was the control center. Inspired by German industrial design, this futuristic room would be the globally recognized face of a futuristic socialism, and remains today the image of this lost future. Cybernet, a network made up of computers, telephone cables, and telex machines that connected nodes, such as the nationalized factories, to the control center, allowing them to communicate. This was to be the information backbone of this cybernetic system. Checo, the Chilean economic simulator, which would use a variety of economic indices and variables, which could predict how these variables could interact if they were changed. This would allow policymakers to play with economic models in advance of making decisions. CyberStride, this was the software, new programs written from scratch that could synthesize data, such as information about factory input and output. The Chileans hired a British firm to help out with the code, as there were too few computer scientists in Chile at the time, and too few computers. And finally, Cyberfolk. Cyberfolk was not implemented in the 2 years of CyberSyn's existence, but was proposed by Beer as a method to gather data on workers' self-reported happiness anonymously. This would allow for the control center to react, intervene, or direct resources to locales that were unhappy. Direct feedback to your elected officials. This was at least the dream, the future hoped for. At least